Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're going to talk over a state of gaming, and this is game fatigue. The reason exactly what this is just we're going to talk about how we, generally speaking, are becoming kind of fatigued with the gaming industry, of how games aren't exactly meeting expectations, or they're launching horribly, or they're just not the type of game that we're looking for, or that we expected. And we talk about the state of gaming, not just necessarily as a whole, but sometimes different facets of the gaming industry. And we kind of do more of a deep dive, and this is what the state of gaming is. If you're interested in more of these, I have a podcast that's set up that looks just like these called The State of Gaming, and there's actually quite a few in there, and there's all sorts of different stuff that I talk about. Anything that's kind of relevant in the industry or something that I've found. So in this one, we're going to talk about how, gaming is a kind of, fun hobby for many of us. There's over 1 billion players worldwide. Some even think over 2 billion. And then some of us actually use gaming as a job and a career, whether we're dev workers or we're kind of content creators or streamers or something. We actually do this to make money. So gaming is huge. I mean, last year it made over $600 billion. Just last year in 2023. So there's a lot of money in it too. These companies are investing in massive kind of sustainability models to make money and to make games for us. But some of these aren't necessarily always a good thing either. And generally speaking, we use gaming for fun, whether, to experience something, to make memories, to create or continue in friendships, even as stress relief, or something just to do while we can't sleep. And so gaming is a pretty big facet of our culture and society. And when games launch well or have quick fixes to the game issues, they rise in popularity very quickly, and they make a lot of money. We can take a look at, Hogwarts Legacy, or Elden Ring, or Baldur's Gate 3. They all made a ton of money recently, and they had maybe not perfect launches, but they did fix their issues pretty quickly. And game previews also help with that too, as Baldur's Gate 3 was in game preview for like 2 or 3 years. And so we've had some wonderful ones. We've had Sea of Thieves, Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, Hogwarts Legacy, Helldivers 2, Palworld, which is just a game preview right now, but that was like 18 million copies, which is crazy. Armored Core, which was last year, Tears of the Kingdom, Dead Space Remake, Cyberpunk. Even though Cyberpunk didn't start out very well, CD Projekt Red really continued on with the project and to improve, and spent an additional $120 million to fix the game for dev time and etc. And then also creating Phantom Liberty, which was unfortunately the only DLC that they accomplished, and there won't be any more for it. They're going to move on with the next project. But Cyberpunk still became a quite the success story, even after several years being outside of launch. And when games release poorly, they don't meet expectations, and they don't get quick support, the game usually fails, or at least doesn't exceed or meet sale expectations. And so I have a list, and this is all very important to the fatigue that I'm going to get to. So failed games. Again, these are games that didn't meet expectations, didn't meet sales goals, are just already forgotten or shut down. And we're going to start in 2021 because 2020, of course, was a real mess for all over the world, messed up a lot of stuff. And I think that is part of the reason for some of this too. The lockdowns really just set into motion for multiple things that just changed the quality of gaming or how things are done. And we had a lot of delays too. So I'm starting in 2021. So we had Marvel's Avengers, which I know that was September of 2020. But it wasn't really getting good updates until later into next year, and also on other platforms. But Marvel's Avengers, Outriders, Call of Duty Vanguard, Battlefield 2042, and Halo Infinite, they all kind of fell flat on their face. They didn't launch very good. Some of them did pretty well, but later weren't able to get content out. Other things, they had things that were missing that were expected to be there, or it was just very heavily monetized, and just didn't really go anywhere. In 2022, we had Rainbow Six Extraction, we had or Extinction, excuse me. Extraction or Extinction, I can't remember. Also, Dying Light 2, Cyberpunk 2077, which that did launch horribly. There was millions in refunds and stuff, and they made a wonderful game. They did fix it in the end. We also had Babylon's Fall, which closed down. We also had Gran Turismo 7, which about a month after a new patch was released, which totally changed the economy in the game. We also had the Rumbleverse, but that closed down after a few months. Saints Row was a total flop. Marvel Snap didn't make it really over a year and a half. Gotham Knights was, again, not what we were looking for. There was also performance issues and frame rate problems. And again, it's just, it wasn't as enticing as, again, the Gotham Knights series was. We also had Warhammer Darktide. This was supposed to come out. This was delayed, and when it did come out on PC, it was very buggy, so they delayed console release for quite a long time, and it did eventually come to console. But again, the other things had already come out already. People had already kind of moved on, and Darktide never really took off, unfortunately. We also had Callisto Protocol, which again was promising because the founder of the studio was from Visceral Games, which made Dead Space. But after the project didn't really go anywhere and it didn't launch very well, he pretty soon left the studio. And, they're left to their own devices now. We also had Marvel's Midnight Suns. Again, just didn't really go anywhere. And also Need for Speed Unbound. This was not a type of game that people were interested in. People liked Need for Speed Heat a lot more and stuck with that instead of doing Unbound. And that was 13 games in 2022. In 2023, we had Forspoken, Wild Hearts, Blood Bowl 3, Redfall, Lord of the Rings Gollum, Exoprimal, Overwatch 2, Immortals of Avium, Starfield, Payday 3, Lords of the Fallen, Cities Skylines 2, Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1, Modern Warfare 3, The Finals, Diablo 4. We had a ton of games this year, in that year, that just did not do well. Either was just buggy, didn't have the support behind it, was launched too early, was a total scam, never should have been launched in the first place, server issues, etc. And so all of these dealt with different issues, or there just wasn't really enough content there to justify the cost of $70 or $100 game. In 2024, we also had Prince of Persia Lost Crown so far, Suicide Squad, Foam Stars, Skull and Bones, Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, which has had a huge fix by now, which was today, March 19th, which is wonderful. I'll have a separate video for that. Be on the lookout. And then also Expeditions, a Mudrunner game. So in 2021, we had 5 games. In 2022, we had 13. In 2023, we had 16. And in 2024, we've already had 6. Now again, this is not an exhaustive list, and I know that, but I took time to look through Wikipedia and looked at every single game that came out and kind of the more AA or AAA titles that did not succeed very well. I added them to the list for the particular year that they were a part of. With this list that I do have, these are games that generally failed. In some aspects, maybe this succeeded, or maybe they started out really well, or maybe they'll actually be fixed, kind of like Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection is looking to be fixed. There's server issues that have been fixed. They've fixed a lot of issues and bugs in the game too already. But again, that all could have been fixed within a week's delay, and we would have had a better product. And you may like some of these games on this list, and that's okay, whether like Wild Hearts or Blood Bowl 3 or Exoprimal. And I'm not saying they're necessarily horrible games. Again, they just didn't meet expectations. They didn't meet sales goals. And that's okay if you like some of these. I like some of these. But again, they just don't have enough of a foothold, or some of them failed horribly. Companies ultimately see what's happening as dozens of games have been canceled over especially last year. It's unreal. Like Embracer Group canceled 29 projects. We've also had around a dozen studios close now between different companies. And then we've also had a myriad of layoffs since 2022. And it all started with the QA teams, which I think we're starting to see the results of that, of how many of these games just did not launch well, or are already dead because the support wasn't there for the game. And when you start adding things up, we got over 30 different games here. We got 40, actually we have over 40 games. We have about 40 games on this list from 21, 22, 23, and so far in 24. And it's pretty amazing when you think about that, because these are all kind of bigger titles. These are games that probably most of us have heard of, and they just have not done that well. Another thing that we've seen too is the discounts. If a game does really good, it barely ever gets discounted. We got to see that with Elden Ring, and we'll probably expect that too with Baldur's Gate 3. They hold on to their value really well because the discounts aren't needed. People still buy the game. But in 2023, we saw some of the fastest discounts on new games that I've ever seen, like Need for Speed, Unbound, Modern Warfare 3, and Immortals of Aveum. These games had discounts like literally within less than a month. And that was shocking because these games had just come out, but they already knew people weren't buying their game at the price point they had set. So they had to lower the price. We've also got to see some of these games start coming to gaming services like Game Pass, where maybe they were out on their own for a few months or maybe 6 months, and then they got onto Game Pass pretty quickly. We got to see this with Atomic Heart and with Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. And of course we did get the day one stuff, like Starfield and Redfall. But it is kind of shocking how quick some of these got onto the service. And so ultimately, as we take a look at this list, what can we glean from all of this? We're finding out that we've had a lot of games that aren't meeting expectations, and it's actually taking less time for channels to call out that these games have died or that they're having serious issues or on the way to dying. And with each passing year, it's just getting faster and faster. It's like a faster pace of people calling out bad games. Now, some of that probably is bad press, bad journalism, where they're looking for views, looking for clickbait, right, to try to get more money from the masses. But generally, there is something to be said for each one of these games, as they haven't done very well. Some of them have been able to redeem themselves, and some of them have been able to still make some form of sales or continue to roll out content to support the game. But other games are totally dead, and they will never come back. Like Redfall being one of them. I can't ever see that game coming back. We've also seen, too, that games also seem to fail faster than they did, and the companies are de-risking, and they're moving into more known projects like Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed, and they're canceling newer ones, like some of the expansions or other iterations of the new IP for Immortals Phoenix Rising. And again, it's the same developer, but we've had tons of games canceled, too. Not just Immortals, but other ones as well. And so the fatigue is reaching the player base. And it's not just with a particular company. It's not with just a particular type of genre. It's all over the place. And we're really starting to see this. And so we're learning that games better be good out of the gate in 2024. Or we can expect the community to damn the game. And we've already seen this with Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. It basically took 3 days for the game to almost go completely dead on PC. It lost 82% of its player base in almost no time at all. The amount of videos that were coming out was almost across every single main channel that I'm subscribed to for gaming news. And they're all talking about it, of just how horrible the game is. And there's kind of flashier language and more clickbaity thumbnails. And, we finally did get a pretty good update today. So I'll take time to play it later this week and give you guys an update on the game and what they actually fixed, and just my own experiences with playing it. But I'm hoping the player base doesn't, completely just check out on this collection. I want it to do well. I would love to see the servers come back for some wonderful games that aren't heavily monetized, but the game has to work. We've also seen the community change pretty quickly on Suicide Squad, and Rocksteady was a huge, wonderful, high reputation studio, and now they're just not that way anymore, and not after Suicide Squad. We do know that 100 Star has basically broken away and formed a smaller team of devs to make the passion projects that they want to make, like they did make with Batman Arkham Knights. or just the Arkham series in general. They want to continue to make those type of games, and so thankfully they've been able to get away and make 100 Star. We also have Empty Vessel, which is another one made out of the different companies that we know and love, like Gearbox and BioWare, where they're focused on passion projects and serving the community. But like also we have games like Skull and Bones that just were years in development, over a decade, 7 official delays, just crazy. And again, this is another game that's already dead. Ubisoft hasn't hit their sales numbers with this, and it's not going to get anywhere near like what Avatar Frontiers of Pandora did last year, which already that game has sold 10 million copies. And so I do think the community really does care about these games, really does care about these developers and these publishers. Otherwise, they wouldn't complain about it so hard. And myself included, I really care about the gaming industry, and partly why I started this channel is to give you guys the facts, to give you guys as big of a window as I can to look at the gaming industry and look at some of these games and publishers and developers and studios, so that you guys can better place your money where you would like to place it. Because there are more scams out there. There are kind of scammier ways to get your money and to further monetize and compartmentalize things and try to get you to keep buying and playing. And ultimately, that's starting to wear pretty thin as we've had live service for a decade now. And so the developers and publishers, they're going to have to think of something else. And so ultimately, Star Wars Battlefront may not bounce back. We'll have to see, as the classic games are already there. But I truly hope it does, because I do believe Spire does care. But if there is someone we should blame, it should be Embracer Group. Aspire doesn't really make the decisions, Embracer does. And so if we want to blame someone for pushing out a game that wasn't ready, we should blame the publisher. And Embracer's been in the news a lot for the last year. They've been selling stuff, they've been having layoffs, they've been canceling and closing studios and games. And this is just another thing where it's like, I really think they wanted to push this out before their Q1 was over, before their quarter was over, so that they could get some more revenue and get it on the books. But again, it wasn't ready. And they'll make less sales now than they would have in the first place if they just had waited and let it cook a little longer. That would have worked out great. But something too with the Star Wars Battlefront collection is that the old servers, at least on PC, they're still there for the older games. You can still play those. So maybe it'll be dead on PC, but I'm hoping it'll keep going at least on console. But yeah, we'll have to see how all this works out. I'll keep you guys informed. Also, something else that's interesting is many games still don't have a release date for this year. Taking a look, you can look for yourself on Wikipedia. But a lot of the games that we know are coming officially this year still don't have an actual release date. And this is something, too, that's just gotten worse with time. We got to see a little bit of this in 23, but we're really seeing it a bunch in 24. And so there's some shifting and moving around in companies. And I think the companies are really beginning to see that the fatigue is setting in for the gaming community, for their consumer base. And we're just tired of the BS. We just want stuff to work. And so, yeah, we're not seeing official releases. They're kind of wanting to ensure, even as they said in some of their memos and public HR updates, some of these studios and publishers are like, yeah, we want to, make some changes and focus on quality. Make sure some of these games are ready, which I think is a good thing. But again, these growing pains aren't very fun. We've also had quiet delays. So there's multiple games, like Flintlock, Stalker 2, where it's really hard to actually get updates on some of these games, and we just haven't really heard anything. And we still haven't heard anything. Another one, too, is like Star Wars Outlaws. That's also a game made by Ubisoft coming this year. Well, it was supposed to kind of launch in the first quarter of 2021, and then it was kind of like, well, the first half of 2024, and then the first half of 2024. And now it's just sometime in 2024. So I think we can expect this either September or later to get actual Star Wars Outlaws. And don't forget, folks, you guys voted for this launch game this year. And so I'll be showing Outlaws as soon as I can to launch and showcase it here right on the channel. So we'll get to see what it's like. Also, we've just had, uh, some of these games with them failing. Bad releases sting a little more when they're now $70, or some of us paid like $100. And like the expectations of Diablo 4 or like Starfield, or even like Modern Warfare 3, where these were some pretty big titles, some pretty big releases. And it's painful when we really realize what we spent our money on really doesn't equal the value that we put into it. So again, like $100, some people really felt like they got screwed on Starfield because the game was boring. It was missing some key features that should have been in there that other games had that they made. And Starfield just didn't feel complete. But again, some people paid early access, which $100, that's a lot, just to play something they didn't enjoy. So be careful, folks. We're all feeling that fatigue probably. We'll probably all have a game that we can think of and just say, wow, I really felt screwed on that one. That's when I found out that, maybe I can't trust that studio anymore. Maybe I can't trust that IP anymore. Maybe I should hold off and actually wait for real reviews to see what a game is like before I pay for it. And we all have a game where we started thinking that way. And most of us are probably there. But I do think some of these growing pains are good. And we do have some, breaking off, if you will, of some of these bigger publisher groups like Embracer. Because, Embracer, they're selling Saber Interactive to go private. And they're also selling Gearbox, roughly at around the same time. And I think those are great. Those IPs are going to go with them. And they're going to be able to grow and develop better as a more passionate studio. And hopefully put some soul back into their gaming. We also have other studios too, like Toys for Bob, that's going independent. And also new studios being created like 100 Star and Empty Vessel. So there's still hope out there. And we still have some good studios. We still have like From Software. We still have Larian Studios. There are still some good ones. And BioWare is now considered part of that too, in my opinion anyway, as they were planning on making their next Dragon Age game kind of live service, and now they've worked away from that and said, no, we're not going to do that. That's not what, our consumers want. And so they're going to try to make the game that we actually like. We haven't had a Dragon Age since Dragon Age Inquisition, I think. It's been a long time. And so there is hope in the industry, folks. As frustrated as I am, I'm excited to see what's going to be coming later this year and into the rest of the decade. But we got to go through some of these growing pains first. That means some of these games need to fail. Some of us need to withhold purchasing or pre-ordering. Because again, the more we give this money to games that don't deserve it, well, the more they're just going to keep making of these games that we don't like. And also games not being ready too, like Cyberpunk. And so folks, keep withholding, keep working on it, keep doing your research too. And I'll do my best here as I can every week with gaming news to keep you guys updated on what's going on in the gaming industry. So if you enjoy State of Gaming, you can always give me a like and follow and all that good stuff. You can always follow me at GamingGarbage22 on YouTube and also over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. But also, liking and subbing is a great way to support the channel for free, but also share the content. If there's someone that that would be interested, you can go ahead and share that as well. And there's plenty of other stuff to take a look at too, as I do here on the channel. There's news, there's State of Gaming, there's taking a look at Game Pass, which is my off-the-cuff playlist, and there's also doing playthroughs too. So poke around through the playlist, see what you think, and of course, hopefully you guys are doing well, and I'll see you guys on the next one.